Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Vitold and here is my point of view on the new Triumph Tiger 900 Rally, specifically in this case in the Aragon edition, so with some additional equipment in comparison to the regular Rally Pro, which had been the top trim in the lineup before. I need you to know that I've also ridden the GT variant of this Tiger 900 and you can find my assessments in the honest review of that motorcycle. Now here, this bike is truly unique in one great way. And I don't mean that it's an Aragon edition, as it doesn't really matter in relation to what I believe is absolutely brilliant in this specific bike. I'll dose you that injection of excitement and let's go through with what this bike is like to ride in general, what it's got, what's good in it, what's not, and in the end I'll tell you how I scored this model on Vitold's recommendation board, which all motorcycles are scored on after I test them. So first things first, walking to the bike, I totally had no idea which one it was, as next to it there was a Tiger 1200 GT. At that time, I didn't know that it was that model. I actually first approached that 1200 GT thinking that this was my 900 Rally, and boy oh boy, had I had to make it seem like I've done it on purpose to not embarrass myself in front of others. Tiger 900 Rally is tall. That fuel tank has some kind of a bar, by the way, under the fuel cap so that you cannot insert the gas pump inside of it and have to hold it in a weird way over. This is something that I don't really get. Now getting on the 900 Rally is quite easy, as the seat is in its lowest position at 86 centimeters, which isn't so high, while it can be raised by further 2 centimeters to 88 centimeters, and then it would be high. For me, at 1 meter 83 centimeters tall or 6 feet tall, it's perfect and I am flat-footing it easily. The bike is not overwhelming despite a very wide handlebar, actually too wide itself for my taste. It's also quite far forward and it requires you to spread your arms a lot at the same time. So some of us may need to bend forward, to lean forward in order to grab it, and it may not be perfectly comfortable, as it isn't for me. I only have some issues when making sharper turns, actually, at lower speeds, when I would notice that with the clutch pulled in, my right hand is making the throttle turn and increase the engine's RPM, even though it's not done on purpose. That's because I'm sort of getting out of reach and my wrist kind of turns back. So yes, it is scientifically proven that you've got to have long arms to feel like at home on this Tiger 900 Rally. Then there is the seat, which itself is pretty comfortable. It's definitely not too hard, it is nicely shaped and it allows you to move a bit forward, a bit backward. I'm happy with it. I like nice things to sit on, and you see one of such most unique creations, so an electric office chair that I'm using. Now I'm adjusting its headrest manually, but it's electric in other places, and it's the best thing that can happen to those who sit a lot at work or anywhere else where there's a desk to sit at. In a Tiger, there's also a windscreen which is adjustable in terms of height, and that makes some difference. But there's always a bit of buffeting, and just like on Tigers from the 1200 series and the 900 GT, there's wind hitting my helmet from the bottom and throwing all kinds of debris into my helmet and exactly into my eyes. So they do suffer. The position on the bike is nice and upright, so the way I like it, just with a bit of a, let's call it a suggestion for you to lean forward because of that handlebar. Then when riding and getting in some tight spots, that forward lean makes things a little bit more difficult, because if you are at your maximum physical range with your arms, maneuvering becomes a challenge, and indeed here it is a challenge. Tiger 900 Rally is not the best balanced motorcycle, I think, and that long travel suspension doesn't help staying super precise. It's not terrible, but for this and some other reasons, I would never get this motorcycle for city riding. One of those other reasons is super wide handguards that stick out of that already wide handlebar like wings ready to hit cars' mirrors. So yeah, it's clear that this hasn't been built for city riding in mind, and I'm simply, well, confirming that. So take it on a faster road, on a highway, and it will be a dream. I think it may be also a good time to mention that one fantastic feature that this 900 Rally provides, and well, it's suspension comfort. Man, I haven't felt that for years in a motorcycle. Last time, only an older BMW F800 GS would fly over bumps like that, but now there's this Tiger 900 Rally, and I am in love with how comfortable it is over any sorts of bumps. Front and rear suspension deal with literally anything, starting from some small cracks of asphalt and ending with speed bumps that suspension just eats for breakfast. Riding over all that is extremely satisfying, and it makes Tiger 900 Rally likely the most comfortable motorcycle in the whole segment suspension-wise. And it's not even electronically adjustable, this suspension, like it is in the Tiger of the also 900 lineup, but in the GT variant. I really cannot let this go, so if you're planning long trips on a motorcycle, solo highway rides, or riding over rough terrain sitting on a bike, this is it. It's a 10 out of 10 here, and I definitely can recommend it for that purpose. It's even well composed in terms of suspension. It's smaller and larger, lean angle, so in corners, and it doesn't dive as much as I would expect it, knowing the level of comfort, so you need some softness in the suspension, in other words. It does dive when you brake with the front brake, but I don't think it's worse than in other motorcycles in the segment. However, using the front brake makes the whole bike behave as if it was raising itself by a few centimeters, and that's a little bit strange, because that up and down motion when you squeeze and release the brake doesn't help you keep control, doesn't help you perceive the bike as very precise. The front brake itself is fine, it is strong enough and easy to dose without much nervous behavior, so I'm liking it. The rear brake it's amazing. The power and the ease of getting that power and unleashing it is great. This is the best rear brake that I've ever experienced in this segment of motorcycles. Its ABS is not panicking, but really maximizes how effective it is. The only challenge is that I cannot use this rear brake much, as the lever is, well, much too high for me, and I've got to lift my whole right foot off the foot brake to use the rear brake. This obviously is not what you want, for example, because not having your foot on the peg means that you're not having that feeling of the bike, and you cannot control it as well. There is a similar story with the gear lever, which you have to use, and it's simply also too high to use it very comfortably, at least if you are my size, and you will need those brakes to slow down this 196 to 201 kilogram motorcycle, and that's weight without fluids, so we may assume that total weight with fuel and other fluids is between 215 and 220 kilograms depending on the trim, with that Aragon being the heaviest due to some additional equipment already there. Considering that this 888 cubic centimeter 3-cylinder engine produces very alive 95 horsepower and 87 newton-meters of torque, good brakes are appreciated. Now, why did I say very alive horsepower? That's because you may feel that they do their job and the bike accelerates without effort and reaches 100 kilometers per hour very quickly. Above that, it's not so crazy, and there are quicker motorcycles within its competitors, but this, I think, is just fine for solo riding in basically any conditions. It sets off confidently, then it quickly reacts to throttle wherever you are in the RPM range with a linear way of delivering power, so no weak and then suddenly powerful spots in the RPM range. It's not making you ride like crazy though. Would I recommend riding outside the city on faster roads with a passenger, with a lot of luggage and having eaten a double lunch? I don't think so, as the way I like to ride, it would lack some performance in those circumstances. Already at speeds higher than 100 kilometers per hour and having higher gears engaged, it loses a little bit of spirit, so there are certain limitations. It's all good in terms of vibration, I think, and I haven't noticed anything especially worrying throughout the whole RPM range. I know people ask about that, I think it's basically fine. Heat management is manageable, if I may put it this way. On a hot day in the city with a lot of long stops, it gets hot, but it's not the end of the world or a deal breaker even, I think. Comparing that to KTMs and Ducatis that become frying pans, there's not much to complain here in this area in the Triumph. Be ready to get a little bit sweaty, but you may still attend that party and not kill everyone with your sweaty smell afterwards. What is not fine, and I hate it, is, well, sorry, but the clutch and transmission. First of all, that clutch, even after moving the lever as close to the handlebar as possible, well, I don't have very small hands, it still grabs totally at the end of the motion when you release it. So there is nothing going on, and then when your fingertips are just about to slide off of that lever, it suddenly starts grabbing, and you need to be very careful not to stall the whole motorcycle. There's lots of engine noise when you try to become friends with this clutch first. So you have throttle, there's nothing going on, so you add more, you release the clutch, and weird things happen. You get better with time, but it's definitely a super tricky one, and it caused me some trouble when in tight traffic. It actually made a big fat BMW R1250G's adventure overtake me in a traffic jam when filtering. That's how insecure this clutch made me feel, and that's a shame. All right, fine, let's move further to more unpleasant area, and then I'll get back to what's nice. So one more thing that I won't accept ever, but will only tolerate, is the transmission with some of the worst quick shifters that are out there. All Tigers, in my opinion, so the 1200 and the 900 have a pretty bad transmission. This one here, after using a quick shifter at some point, just simply jumped out of gear. I was already accelerating in a gear, and then that happened. What the hell? So I engaged the gear again, locked. And then a moment later it's out again, and the bike is revving its engine on the red line without having any gear engaged. I don't have propulsion. There are cars behind me, and there's a whole lot of shame, and I'm like, would I pay so much money for it? Now this is scary. Technically it can also be dangerous. And well, it just simply should not be happening. If a gear is engaged, it's engaged. And there are manufacturers that do it correctly. So Triumph, fix those transmissions, and a quick shifter will be good at. To drop gears using the system that the quick shifter, you've got to be brutal, sometimes very brutal. I mentioned earlier that suspension is not electronically adjustable, but I need to add that it is adjustable manually. And in the front, you've got those cute knobs on the top of the forks for easy access, and I do like that very much. This is really cool. I believe only KTM has a similar sort of solution, while others need you to carry a screwdriver in your pants. You know, just to be safe on the roads in case you crash or something bumps into you. You know, having a screwdriver next to your guts is one of the greatest feelings. And a few coins just in case you need to bribe someone at any point in life, but they need to be very, very tiny to fit in those adjustment screw gaps or whatever that is in other bikes. This 900 Rally is also equipped with 21-inch front rim and a 17-inch rear rim. Not 18, a little bit smaller, 17. And those tires are tubeless. In the front, you may play with that crazy 24 centimeters of wheel travel. In the rear, there is 23 centimeters of wheel travel, and this is impressive, and it places the Tiger 900 Rally among the most, I wanted to say capable, but I'll say that among the motorcycles with the largest suspension travel simply. What's different here is that it is super crazy comfortable, while others with a lot of suspension travel mostly aren't comfy at all. They utilize super stiff suspensions instead. I'm with Triumph on this one, and I prefer this path much more. What else is nice is that you've got riding modes to choose from, so likely road and sport when you're on tarmac, and indeed sport proves to be the one with the sharper throttle response. The whole bike gets a bit more nervous on one hand, but then it does feel more punchy, which is a plus when you're already at some speed, and I do prefer to keep the Tiger in sport. Actually, there's one thing, because I kept it in sport, there was a path of wet tarmac. I did try to test it in a very smart way by adding a lot of throttle, and I don't know what exactly happened, but traction control basically did nothing. The bike started going sideways, and that's not what I think even in sport mode should be exactly happening, because that was a fairly significant slide. Don't know what will happen in the road mode, but I might want to recommend you to just keep it in road if you're not actually going to, ride on perfectly clean asphalt, perfectly dry in a warm temperature. I think I would stick to road even though it's a little bit more sloppy. And you can switch the modes with a dedicated separate button just for that, and I love this solution. Then there's that joystick also on the left handlebar that's still pretty close to the indicator switch, and it causes some confusion. Right next to it there is also horn as well, and there was a case when I decided, well, not to look for the horn to use it, but instead to watch the road and steer the bike without losing my focus. But had the horn been alone in that area, like in most motorcycles, I would be able to use it more easily while doing everything else. So looking in front of myself and steering the bike. Let's say that this is only maybe a matter of getting used to, but still, it's a little bit of a lot of stuff there in a pretty critical spot. What is not that easy to get used to is the lack of a proper light switch that would let you switch between high beam, low beam, and would allow you to flash, or a passing light, some call it, to use it. Now, here you only have one option, to pull the switch. And depending on what light setting you currently are in, which I'm not sure you always remember that, oh, I'm in a mode that uses daytime running lights, or I'm in a mode that uses full beam, and if I'm in a mode with a full beam, there is this function of the switch. If I'm in the other one, there is another function. So you'll either enable high beam fully and it'll stay there, or you will be flashing. Which one will happen? You will see once you do it. It's a freaking stupid solution that's also in the 1200. And well, just being different here is not what I think is exactly beneficial. You know, just keep it normal. It's the same switch, just let it go back for keeping the high beam. And so far I've been a little bit scared to mention handling. So to make it more diplomatic, let me first summarize what's awesome in this Tiger 900 Rally, and it's amazing suspension comfort. Very nice seat, easy front suspension adjustment, which is a plus, that's not standard. This competent engine that doesn't vibrate too much and handles its heat in a not terrible way. I do appreciate the adjustable windshield and other nice equipment like LED front lights, riding modes, traction control, cornering ABS, heated grips, tire pressure monitoring system that I genuinely love, and I think it needs to be there in every single vehicle that has wheels with tires with air in them. There's also cruise control. There can be both heated seats in higher trims and, well, quick shift. So what's up with that handling? Well, you know, I don't want to be rude. I really would prefer not to upset anyone, but well, if that was the point, I wouldn't be calling this an honest review. So handling, its speeds, is shit. Well, the bike generally lacks precision, just like at low speeds. Maneuvering is still somehow manageable, while at higher speeds it's not something that I can consider good, knowing all other motorcycles. And they are all tall, maybe some are not as tall. They mostly have 21-inch front rims, so that's not it. It's just the way it is designed, the whole package. Well, going further, it doesn't want to turn, basically, at all, whenever it involves any sort of lean angle. So speed, in other words. It just pulls you up all the time, no matter what you try to do with it. It feels like otherwise, if you keep pushing it, it may just fall on its side at any time, and it's not exactly only the tires. And it's very similar to a KTM 1290 Super Adventure R that also fights you with all its guts just not to turn when riding faster. And by faster, I already mean speeds like 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. Above that, it's even harder. This Tiger 900 Rally is not a motorcycle for twisty roads or any kinds of turns involving a lean. So if that is important to you, if you want a well-handling bike, you'll have to sacrifice on suspension comfort and get yourself a GT variant instead of Rally of this Tiger. That one is absolutely and totally fine, while this one sucks in terms of handling. I love Triumph for bringing some great features into the mid-size and also large adventure motorcycle segment, but they, like everyone, have to improve their products in some areas to get closer to perfection. And if you want to have it much better in the handling area, you just go for the GT1 that handles totally fine. It's much more neutral comparing to this. It's not as comfortable, but well, I don't know if it's doable to have it all in one motorcycle, but I need you to know everything about this because that's the reason why we're here. Fine then, the topic of design I'm leaving to you guys. I actually find this particular Aragon edition pretty interesting to look at. I like the paint texture. Tiger 900 is not the prettiest motorcycle in my opinion, and that's my personal view based on my own very personal taste. That front lamp just doesn't suit me here. It's something... But anyway, what else? There is chain drive, there is no keyless access, you cannot have that. So keep that key where you have it easily accessible. Exhaust sound is not having too much character, but it's not terrible either for this kind of motorcycle. It's a solid bike. But then there's the display, which is quite laggy when changing riding modes, for example. You press it 10 times quickly, you leave it, and it still goes. It's like an super old computer that's about to hang, or it's already actually hanging. The display here, after you switch the ignition on, it loads. extremely long. So this can annoy you, and it happens every time you switch the bike off and then back on. And the style of the rev counter is beyond me. I've said a lot about it in my review of the GT variant with the same thing, so please excuse me here and I won't comment on that much. It's not a big deal. The bike is rather expensive in those higher trims, and it almost touches the pricing of a base Tiger 1200 GT. I'll tell you this, it is a great highway motorcycle for a solo rider after you improve wind protection with a different windshield, or maybe just with a deflector added to it. It may encourage you to actually ride on some rough roads. It's unusually comfortable. It just soaks up everything. The engine is rather pleasant and does the job when riding solo. I wouldn't recommend getting it for city riding or for roads with a lot of corners, as it's going to be a struggle there handlebar wise and handling wise. And Triumph, better just get it an automatic gearbox to get rid of dealing with that crappy transmission. Buy it from Honda, whatever, but just why not to fix it? Easier said than done, I guess. I'm giving this bike a 7 out of 10, with its suspension being 10 out of 10, but handling only 4 out of 10. And let me know what you guys think about this version. If you ride one, do please touch upon what you think is the key thing about this bike, this variant. I'll make a comparison between this and a GT, so stay tuned and subscribe to see that soon.